In the name of the Good Shepherd, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. Good morning, and happy Mother's Day. I bring greetings from the Diocese of North Carolina, my home diocese and my home parish, St. Michael's Episcopal Church in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm delighted to worship with you this morning and thank Father Sunil for this invitation to preach. I feel I know you so well, even though most of us have never met, for it's been my privilege since October to work alongside a dedicated and talented group of folks from this parish who have helped to organize and implement Christ Church's capital campaign. So I've gotten to know a lot about Christ Church, your history with this beautiful building, and what this church has meant to generations of people in this community. It's a heritage you should be proud of, and I know that you want to preserve and expand. This group of parishioners and I have spent a good amount of time over the last several months working through what we believe God is calling this parish to be and to do in this season of your ministry. And what has emerged from this process was the vision for the capital campaign, to make the much-needed repairs and enhancements to this beautiful building, this spiritual home for so many, to guarantee that it would continue to be a witness for God in this community for generations to come. It's an exciting vision, and I want to encourage you to attend the adult forum today, where we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that vision, and particularly how giving generously is a call to conversion and deeper discipleship as Christians. We'll watch the wonderful campaign video if you haven't seen it yet. You don't want to miss it. It's beautiful. But today, the fourth Sunday of Easter, is traditionally known as Good Shepherd Sunday. And so each year on this date, we hear passages in the lectionary that speak to the fact that God is our shepherd. For example, the psalm we read, Psalm 23, arguably the most famous of the Psalms. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. And in our gospel reading from John, we hear Jesus refer to himself as the Good Shepherd, who has laid down his life for his sheep. My sheep hear my voice. I know them, and they follow me. In fact, the image of the Good Shepherd became one of, if not the most prominent of visual images of Jesus in the early church. In fact, the earliest extant visual images we have of Jesus from the 3rd century are of him as a shepherd carrying his sheep. Now, this might surprise us, since for most of us, the most recognized image of Jesus is arguably of him on the cross or the crucifix. But that was not so for the earliest Christians. Remember, the cross was a mode of execution, so the image was, as it were, grotesque to the earliest Christians. It wasn't a piece of gold jewelry like it is for us today. In fact, we don't see images of the cross emerge in Christian iconography until the 10th and 11th centuries, a whole 1,000 years after the life of Christ, and well after the crucifixion was no longer used as a prevalent form of execution. So for the first 1,000 years of Christianity, the Good Shepherd was the dominant symbol of Jesus. So what does this symbol mean for us? As a symbol for Jesus, and by inference then of God, he gives us comfort. In the words of the psalmist, even when we travel through the darkest valleys, or in the language of the King James Bible, the shadow of the valley of death, you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. My sheep hear my voice, Jesus says. I know them, and they follow me. No one will snatch them out of my hand. And if we didn't get it the first time, he repeats that line again. No one can snatch us out of the Father's hand. We are safe, known, and loved by God. You'll recall Jesus' parable of the lost sheep found in both Matthew and Luke. How God loved us so much that he would leave the flock of 99 sheep to find the one that was lost. To be known by God, then, to be that one out of the 100. Isn't that an amazing thing? That out of this vast universe, the billions and billions of people that have lived and will live on this one planet, in this one spot of that universe, we are known by our Good Shepherd, by name, and he hears our voice. This symbol tells us something about us as well. If Jesus is our shepherd, then of course we are his sheep. But to be described as a sheep isn't the most complimentary associations for us. Sheep tend to be dirty and wayward. They aren't the brightest of animals and are known for their stubbornness. Does it sound familiar? They're easily frightened and confused, defenseless and dependent, and thus often need guidance and protection from their shepherd. Jesus says, I know them. I know all their weaknesses and faults, their dependencies, their confusion, their stubbornness, and yet they are nevertheless precious to me. No one will snatch them out of my hand. In fact, Jesus says they will follow me. And so here, I think it's important for us to understand the differences between our Western view of shepherding and Jesus' more Eastern sense. In the West, shepherding has become herding, either with dogs, you think of Ireland and the use of dogs to shepherd sheep, or horses in the American West. But for shepherds in Jesus' time, and still to some extent today in the Middle East, shepherds lead their sheep. They go in front of them, not behind. So why is this an important distinction? Jesus leads us as his sheep. He goes ahead of us and prepares a way for us. Again, in the words of the psalmist, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. He even goes ahead of us through that darkest of valleys, that valley of the shadow of death. And when we recite the Apostles' Creed in morning or evening prayer and say that Jesus was crucified, died, and was buried, we also then add, he descended to the dead. That descent to the dead, or as the tradition called it, the harrowing of hell, is sometimes thought of as a rather obscure phrase. What does it mean? I'm not sure. But I think we get a glimpse of its meaning here in thinking about how Jesus, as our loving Good Shepherd, leads us, goes before us through those dark valleys. To say, in other words, that Jesus descended to hell, to the dead, means that there is no hell in our lives, no place of death and suffering, no place of addiction or pain, that Jesus hasn't gone there ahead of us and is waiting there for us. Jesus, as our shepherd, goes before us, not behind us, leading us to green pastures, beside still waters, and no one, nothing can snatch us out of the loving embrace of God. This should give us great comfort as we follow Jesus. So if we're all sheep, for better or worse, then the church is a collection of those sheep, the flock of the people that follow Jesus. The church should be that place of comfort, that place of peace and rest, those places of still waters, banquet tables where we are fed, that place where our souls are restored, that place where goodness and mercy flows. And this ultimately is what Christ Church's campaign is all about. Restoring this place so that it can continue to be the place for the restoring of our souls. where goodness and mercy flows, where we lack for nothing. May God continue to bless this community of Christ's followers as it seeks to be the place where generations meet God, are known by God, are fed, restored, and find comfort and peace. Surely goodness and mercy follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.